remember Mary Casey just dropping her job when that happened, and the room was silent. And I don't think it's appropriate for us, especially with our visitors, our customer base, our workforce, and ourselves, to be tolerant of that.
Right.
And there's several more things that have happened, and some of them, frankly, have happened internally. And so I just want to make sure that we are all paying attention both to what we say and to what we hear. And that's it.
Good.
Thanks for sharing that, Armando.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. Larry Russell, you have any comments?
I don't, Jack.
All right, thank you. That gets us, I guess, to our consent calendar. Can I get a motion to approve our consent calendar?
So moved. I have a question. I just wanted to confer with Jared about asking on that lease assignment, if we could at least ask the assignee about the battery backup capability on that station.
Of course, Director Bragman, we can definitely ask them. I'm not sure if VBT1 will be the one to ask or T-Mobile, but whenever we send out the consent to assignment agreement, we can ask whichever party is most knowledgeable to provide those details.
And then one other comment is, in other lease agreements I've seen and worked on, there is an adjustment if they add additional broadcast facilities, which ours don't have. So it's just something for you to kind of be aware of as we go through these renewals, that's pretty standard now. So it might be something the district could pick up a little more rent.
Yeah, Director Bragman, actually the construction section of that lease agreement, I think it's section 26, if I recall correctly, actually allows for that. If someone's going to add additional antennas or facilities, they actually have to get the district's permission, and usually we negotiate additional lease money for that.
Okay. I'm sorry I didn't see that.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
I have a question, Jack. I just looked at this video that Larry was talking about. It seems to me we should reach out to this woman and just say, you know, it doesn't at all represent Marin or us or anybody else here, if folks think that's appropriate.
Okay. Yeah.
Got a letter from the board or letter from Jack?
Okay.
Yeah, any or Ben or any of the combined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we could send her a parking pass to kind of just say, you know, she's really sorry. And
Yeah, and that you're welcome.
Yeah, I like that. That's a great idea, Larry Russell.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, we'll go ahead and do that. I think a letter from Jack would
Okay.
make appropriate.
Yep.
Good.
Just
All right.
make sure it's on the board.
you know how long it takes Jack to write letters, right?
Yeah.
We'll
I got a good staff. Okay, I guess we're on our regular calendar here. Item number 6, increase visitor impacts from COVID-19.
Actually, President Gibson,
Yes.
I think, I'm not sure, did anybody do a second on the consent calendar?
Oh, second?
Thank you. And is it okay for me to go ahead and do a roll call?
Sharice, do we have any public comment on the consent calendar before it goes to approval?
I don't have any public comment on the consent calendar. Public comment.
There is no public comment.
Okay.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Kohler,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
President Gibson.
Aye. All right, I guess now we're on regular calendar item number 6, increased visitor impacts on the watershed.
Good evening, board members. I'm Sean Horn, Watershed Resource Manager. I'm going to share my screen. We've put together a presentation for this item tonight, so just give me 1 second here. All right. So with the COVID-19 shelter in place, we have seen an increase in watershed visitors, which generally is a good thing. And we're happy that people are using the watershed and finding time to visit and getting the peace of mind that they need from the to our watershed. However, the increase has resulted in some impacts to our watershed and to users in general that we wanted to bring to the board's attention and have some discussions about things that we're doing in the near term that we're to address some of the heightened use that we're seeing, as well as some kind of long-term concepts that we'd like the board to consider and provide some direction on for how we might be able to address higher than normal usage in general. How our rangers have been describing this is that we're really seeing we're seeing weekend crowds on the weekdays, and we're seeing holiday crowds on the weekends. And then that was further heightened this last weekend because it was a holiday, and we also had higher than normal levels of use, as well as closures of some beaches throughout California. And so we had much higher use on the watershed. So with that, we're having these specific issues relating to that higher than normal use, being parking limitations. Primarily on the weekends, we're seeing this be a significant issue and having to close and monitor some parking areas. We're seeing higher than level of use at major entry points and along popular trails. That is making it difficult for some people to socially distance and protect themselves while they're out on the watershed. Our trash facilities and some of our porta potties and sanitation services are being overwhelmed by this higher than normal use. And then we're also having to respond to more medical aid requests, our rangers, due to this sheer number of users that we're seeing, as well as some of these users being perhaps new users to the watershed and finding themselves in situations where they need assistance. So we're going to review some of that data with you tonight. And then also some of the steps we're taking to make sure that our users are aware of the COVID-19 protection measures that they should be employing while they're out on the watershed. So the increased use really is overwhelming some of our facilities. Bontempe parking area on the left has really been one that we've had to shut down on the weekends because of higher than normal use and overcrowding and really limited parking in that zone. Then some of our trash facilities just really aren't designed for the level of use that we're seeing. So we've got a number of steps that we're taking to try to address that. That overwhelming of the trash is an issue for us in the watershed because it does result in kind of dispersal of that trash by wildlife and by the wind. And so we have a couple of steps that we're going to be taking as watershed staff to help address those issues. An ongoing area that is of concern is the Cataract Trailhead. One of our rangers counted 146 cars parked along the side of the road on Saturday at 3 p.m. That far exceeds what the capacity of parking in that area is. And it went from Alpine Dam all the way up X Road beyond the trailhead, which was concerning for a number of reasons. Emergency vehicles access was being diminished. And then there were some issues with cars actually having to be pulled off the side of the road because they parked too close to the edge. Excuse me. And then our porta potty facilities really aren't designed to handle this level of use. On Cataract Trail over the weekend, one of our rangers counted 229 people in an hour period walking the trail. And that is a single use pathway for hikers. And that's of concern because it's just hard for people who are out there enjoying that area to stay safe and protect themselves. And we're also seeing people going in the water and violating some of our regulations in that zone. So these are issues that we're taking very seriously. And we think that we need to address it in a number of ways to ensure that our users feel safe while they're on the watershed, and also that the resources that they enjoy on the watershed are being protected, and to ensure that the quality of their recreational experiences do not diminish during this higher than normal level of use. So the graph in front of you is really representational from a calendar year perspective of 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 of medical aids that the rangers respond to. And so, we're partway through this year and we're seeing numbers that equal almost what we see in an average year. So we're going to continue to see these numbers grow as we have higher than normal levels of use on the watershed. They're proportionally in line with the types of medical responses we get. But this is of concern not only for responding to the users, but also our rangers are having to interact and be in closer proximity to more people and help them get off of the watershed in a safe way, which is something to be concerned about in the COVID-19 era. So in order to protect our users while they're on the watershed, we've been reviewing other agency signage and trying to come up with signage that really help users understand how they can be safe while they're on the watershed, but also do it in a way that doesn't over pollute the kind of signage that we have and kind of overwhelm people with the information that we're providing. However, we have had a number of signs that are very important, those being face coverings on the watershed, keeping 6 feet of distance, and certain areas that are closed, as well as areas that have had access reduced in ways where we need to remind people about etiquette procedures in order to ensure that people can move that sense. We'll continue to adapt our signage as this goes on and as we see watershed usage change, and we'll target in certain areas signage that might help address issues that we see. So some of the near-term actions that we're taking to address this higher than normal use is we've increased our servicing of our porta potties throughout the watershed. We've installed additional porta potties at the Lagunitas parking area. We've installed hand sanitizer on all of those facilities. Trash, we've upgraded 2 of our trash cans to wildlife-proof trash facilities. This is something that has been in the works for a while and will continue to do in this fiscal year. Trash patrol is a new maintenance activity that we're embarking on, where we'll actually have maintenance staff going out and addressing some of those high use areas and some of that dispersed trash and littering that we're seeing, and try to address that before it goes anywhere else on the watershed. Parking, we are providing hand sanitizer at our parking fee station, and we are continuing to sell online passes via online services. So in regards to outreach, we've got a number of strategies that we're moving forward to help just kind of educate users about safe practices while they're in this COVID era. So we're expanding our Watershed Ambassador program to be a Watershed Greeters program. We're developing kind of a general methodology for this, and we're going to spearhead it with staff, where we'll actually go out onto the watershed, set up a station in high use areas, and just try to interact with people and make sure that they feel safe and understand the rules that we're putting in place to help protect users and the safety procedures that we are recommending. We're also looking at developing a self-led volunteer activity and help support people's ability to get out there and volunteer in a way that allows them to do it with their family units. And this will be around trash abatement. So we'll provide the equipment and the sanitation materials in order to facilitate this activity. And it'll be a way for us to step back into having volunteer activities. So this is something that we're going to be pursuing the next couple of weeks. In addition to address some kind of trail etiquette concerns, we've outreached to the Slow and Say Hello campaign, and we're going to increase the number of activities on the watershed for this year and also target some of those events for the Phoenix Lake area. And this is going to be conditional on their ability to get volunteers for this. And so there is some concerns around how many people are willing to volunteer during this time. But we do see this as maybe the going forward, how many events that we would be pursuing, if not more. So in regards to parking, our rangers are monitoring all the parking areas during the week and weekends. And when we are seeing overcrowding, they are closing those facilities ahead of time. We've increased some signage in some new slow zones, and we're going to show you a map of that a little bit later on in this presentation, but I think that's going to help some of the speed issues that we've seen on trail, on fire roads. We've installed temporary targeted COVID-19 signage at select locations, and we've been responsive to concerns regarding face mask coverings and increasing signage for that, so that can be a little more forward-facing to remind people. Traffic control and speed control. We've actually rented a signboard that we're putting at the bottom of the Bolinas Fairfax Road to let people know that on the weekends when we're having high use, that the parking areas might be closed, because we have had to close the parking areas, which has resulted in some traffic jams on Sky Oaks Road. So that's a mitigation measure for that. We've also been monitoring speed using speed monitoring signs and putting that in areas where we've noticed people speeding in and out of the watershed. We're also monitoring speed in downhill locations using our LiDAR detector speed gun for cyclists. Now moving to some of the longer term actions that we want to bring up and just note that we'll be working on, and we'd like some guidance around some of these elements, is restroom upgrades at Lagunitas parking lot. We're noticing that our facilities really are getting overwhelmed, and this might be an area that we want to focus some resources on in the future to help us develop some facilities that are going to support our users in this way. We're going to continue to upgrade our trash to these wildlife-proof containers, and we think that's a way just to help contain the trash. And we're also going to look into increasing the servicing throughout the watershed, and specifically at Lagunitas parking lot, where we have our largest facility. In regards to road and trail, we do recognize that there might be some engineered speed controls and safe passing distances that we could set up in high use areas. This is something we don't have an actual proposal for tonight by any means, but we're going to be looking at, what controls could be established on the watershed and just bring those forward in other spaces for the board to consider as ways to manage usage. In regards to the Watershed Greeter program, we really think this could be a foundation for spearheading larger partnerships with our community and really focusing on mountain bike clubs, cycling clubs, other user groups that might want to participate in this. So we're going to spearhead the Watershed Greeters program with staff, and our intention is to then evolve that program to be something that volunteers can participate in. And then we might want to think about some strategies where we could create some incentives for volunteers to continue to participate and really to tap into kind of some of those youth groups that might be using the watershed, and we can teach them about trail etiquette and user responsibility early. So in regards to the Slow and Say Hello program, we have increased it to 4 times this year. We think that's an appropriate amount for future years. So we may need to increase our annual level of financial support to that organization to ensure that we can keep that frequency of events on the watershed. Signage, there really is a need to enhance our messaging around trail etiquette on the watershed. This is an area that we can really focus on signage. And I'm going to briefly go through and just kind of review where our signs are on the watershed and what they say, so you all have just kind of a general understanding of when we talk about enhancing messaging around trail etiquette, what we're focusing on. So this map in front of you, I know it's probably kind of small on your computers, but all of these dots are the signs that we currently have on the watershed. So there are different types of signs, from regulation signs to totem signs that tell you the way on the trail, to targeted signs to kiosks that have more information. So we have a significant amount of signage on the watershed. One of the things we have to be aware of is that as we put more signage on the watershed, there's always the risk that people start to avoid our signs altogether. So when we have signage, what kind of sign? We have kind of 3 orders of signs in general. We have this first order, which is our major entry points, that gives you general information about the watershed. We have our kind of regulation signs that are at our major entry points, or second order trail signs. And then we have our third order signs that are kind of our totem poles throughout the watershed, reminding users of the regulations within the areas they're using. And then in addition to those, we have these kind of targeted regulation signs in areas where we've had problems, or we are trying to inform people about a certain issue. So our kiosk information boards are really good about presenting information about the natural resources of the watershed and a general overview map of the watershed. Some of the newer signs that we've developed on the watershed, on the map portion, we've provided insert maps, so smaller maps that show hiking routes or biking routes within the vicinity that kiosk is placed. So that is an important element to keep people understanding where they are on the watershed, and something we might want to look at expanding. But what our signage at the kiosks are really missing is that messaging around trail etiquette and regulations. So that might be an area that we want to focus some design and improvements on to really get to that messaging that we're targeting, the trail etiquette messaging. So our regulation signs that are at these entry points provide you with a general overview of what you can and cannot do in those areas. And I'll just point your attention to the bottom of the sign on your left. That yellow triangle is the trail etiquette. So I think we can all see from that, that's probably hard for most people to view and see and interpret. And so that's an area that we could probably improve even there, and enhancing what trail etiquette means for our users. Our totem poles, these are really good for just orienting people when out on the watershed and reminding them of the regulations in the area that they're using. And then our targeted regulation signs, this ranges from updating people on fire danger to being at our major entry points about the regulations generally for the watershed, and then at specific areas where we might have ongoing issues. And so the point of the sign review really here was just to kind of show you the messaging we have, and then present some kind of options for how we can improve messaging around that trail etiquette if we want to move in that direction. So other long-term actions, we're looking at enforcement, and some of the things that we could bring forward to the board for further consideration is really looking at the efficacy of our warning, citation, and fine system, and evaluate what a stronger enforcement approach looks like for the district. We could increase slow zones throughout the watershed, and so we've mapped a number of those, and we'll show you that next. And we think that this could be a mechanism for just helping to maintain speeds in certain areas where we have had conflicts in the past. Regulation updates, this is something that we could be considering with the board and working on, is looking at our current regulations after this review and really seeing if there's steps that we could take to ensure better use and better practices generally. We need to be cognizant and thinking about what regulations are enforceable and if we have the staff to really enforce those regulations. So those are just things to be thinking about, but they could possibly include things like bells on bikes, setting lower passing speed limits or minimum passing distances. So on the watershed right now, we do have slow zones. All the yellow areas are mapped slow zones. The orange areas are where the rangers have mapped zones that they think we have speed issues, and we could have either slow zones in a portion or all of these orange areas. So this is an area where we could come with some additional signage at a fairly low cost and low. It wouldn't be very hard for us to implement, but I think we could, refine this map a little bit and come up with some targeted slow zones where we're having ongoing issues regarding speed on fire roads with bikes. And longer term is kind of more of a comprehensive plan that we'll bring forward again when we discuss e-bikes and other items with you, but it's really thinking about all of this comprehensively in a holistic way and thinking about a watershed sustainable use plan, just acknowledging that we are increasing usage year after year after year. And this COVID-19 era is really focusing not only on our community's need for open space and watershed lands, but also just the sheer number of people that are trying to access these areas. And it acknowledges that our facilities and our visitors and our natural resources are all intermingling and are one, and we need to manage and treat them accordingly and as one system and unit. And so this is something that we'll continue to hash out. And if the board would like to see a more full-blown approach to this or outline, that's something that staff could further develop and bring forward in future spaces for the board to consider. So with that, we're really here to hear any input that you have on items that we can do in the near term to address this higher than level use, or some adjustments to long-term plans and strategies that you would like to direct us to focus on.
Okay. I have just a couple of comments and questions myself. I'm sure other board members do as well. But every time we have had hearings, meetings on any of the user issues, when the e-bike advocates come before us or other bike groups come or equestrians or whomever, we get one after the other offers to help us and volunteer for various activities. So it sounds like you're focusing on that already, but but tapping into those groups should get you a lot of volunteers. Yeah, it seems to me. The other point, I understand in general that weekdays in this coronavirus era, weekdays on the watershed are looking as weekends normally would look.
Right.
Now, Muir Woods has capacity limitations, and they literally, I'm not quite sure how they do it, but they close it down, with signs all over closing it down. Do we have even the capacity to do that? Monitor how many people are on there at a given point and say, okay, that's it, we're closing it, nobody else is going in. Is there any possibility to have a system like that, given the size of our watershed and the number of entry points? But yeah. And especially in the coronavirus era, I wouldn't want to see this necessarily for all time, but at least serving the immediate problem we're having.
Yeah, we could investigate that, Jack, and come back with some thoughts on where that would be appropriate.
Okay, good, thank you. Any other board members have comments, questions?
I do, Jack.
Several.
Go ahead, Armando, go ahead.
I have a short list. Number one, I think when we talk about the watershed, we need to include Sulahuli and Nicasio in what you're talking about. And if you talk about a trash issue as an example, Nicasio is a mess. If you go around the shoreline of Nicasio, many of the visitors there are folks who are fishing. And I think Sean knows, as others on the staff know, the shoreline is a mess. There's bait buckets, there's lunches, there's beer cans, there's all kinds of stuff. So I think we need to be thinking about all the reservoirs in the district when we talk about watershed. And it's important, I think, to mention that, just because we all tend to focus on Mount Tam.
Yeah.
The other thing is that I continue to be concerned about the need for a discussion around staffing. I think that the shift that we're seeing in visitorship is going to be it's very likely to be a long lasting shift, because we're getting a lot of new folks out on the watershed, and they're discovering what it is. And it's pretty amazing. And it's not because of bikes. It's not because of one TAM. It's because people are looking for open space. I was surprised, Sean, that you didn't mention one TAM in your presentation. We've got, and so I'm very curious as to how that organization and the very well-trained volunteer workforce that they have fits in the plan. A couple other things, and when we talk about trail etiquette, I do think we need to talk about race and access and equity. You know, I think we need to be making a statement that these lands are everybody's lands, you know, and I would like to see that in future signage. Because I mean, right now it's a hot button and it's very real. And I am actually getting calls from people who work in park agencies who are mortified at what they as individuals are experiencing, as well as what they're seeing. You know, what we're seeing are those moments that are actually caught on video, but there's more of them out there. I like to think that there may be some statement that's carefully thought out that talks about how this is all of the public's land, so that you don't have folks saying things like, go back to your country. That's just nauseating, actually. I also think that part of trail etiquette should include a reference to respect for everybody who's out there. I mean, that crosses all the boundaries. And I think that just an overarching statement around respect for everyone is fitting and appropriate. I also think that from having worked in parks and having worked in law enforcement and supervising law enforcement, I think that preparing to be reactive to the activities that are going on is important, but also a very powerful impact is peer pressure. It's getting the other users on the lands saying to other folks, hey, don't do that, or, you know, to cyclists saying to other cyclists and such. I think emphasizing the role of peer pressure, I think, can be, you know, really important. And also, I know that it's in the signs. I mean, in the last 2 weeks, I've traveled 36 miles on trails on the mountain, and 22 of that was actually walking. And so I do think that messaging around the value of the watershed is also extraordinarily important, because in the state, it is the watersheds, it is the green infrastructure that's getting a lot of attention from legislators. It's getting a lot of attention from investment opportunities. There's businesses arising around that. And there's also a tremendous amount of science. And as you know, Sean, you know, the understanding and the science is evolving continually. And so I think that however we can strengthen those messages, it's also important. And I'll send this stuff to you in writing, because it was kind of a long list. But yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks, though. That was good. I'm not criticizing. I'm saying that was good. Okay.
Okay, I have a few comments, Sean. I don't agree with your assessment about the porta potties at all. The issue is not the capacity of the porta potty, it's having enough porta potties to match the capacity. And I think we need to step up to the big boys table here and do something like immediately quadruple the number of toilets. I don't know if that's even the right number. It might be more than that. Have them clean twice a day, which we can easily do. There's a lot of information flying around right now on the wastewater side of the business about the presence of the virus in wastewater. So it's clearly there. It jives with the level of infection in the community and so forth and so on. So keeping these things clean, I think, is a really important effort that needs to be made. And like I say, I don't think we need, you know, I complained to Crystal 2 weeks ago when my wife was at Bontempi and the bathroom was disgusting. She immediately responded, and that's fine. But I think we're probably under responding. So I don't know that we need to have a plan to address this, but I think you just need to step forward and do it. And like I say, if we spend, you know, $100,000 renting toilets, then we spend $100,000 renting toilets. I think that the gates, perhaps we could do something like labeling the entrances as friendship gates with some sort of a mission statement that says, right to access this is conditional on your agreement to treat all people with equal respect, or something to that effect.
That's good.
The thing, and this may not go over too well, but what they've been doing in my neck of the woods is they are giving tickets to every vehicle that does not have Marin County registration. I think we might think, in terms of your thoughts, Jack, we could make an effort to restrict the usage to Marin people first. I think, you know, Armando's thoughts are nice ones, that it belongs to everybody, but actually it belongs to our constituents. And
It's a state park, it's a county park, it's a
well,
national.
those
park
are,
as
those
well.
are, but
So,
ours,
yeah.
but ours, you know, our watershed is what
Yeah,
we're talking about.
Good luck with the boundaries on that.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't care about the boundaries. What I'm talking about is the entrances. And it seems to me that we should address this stuff not in the what I will call the normal way that MMWD addresses things, which is kind of small time. You know, Jack, you mentioned Muir Woods. I mean, the way Muir Woods works is they sell a ticket.
Yeah.
That's how they control.
Yeah.
And they require a shuttle bus. You know,
And they have a
maybe it's-
single parking lot.
I know, but parking lots can be built, right? We've got places that could be done with a little planning. And, you know, maybe we should think about relieving the overload of the vehicles with a shuttle bus from somewhere. I don't know where just yet. I mean, it could be as far away as Home Depot's parking lot or Target's parking lot. They would probably cooperate with a certain level. They won't want 100,000 cars, but 500 cars might be something they could stomach. Maybe not. But I think we need to grow out of the, you know, this is just our backyard and it's available to everybody. And we need a real plan here to move forward. Unfortunately, we need to move forward now, not in 3 months, not in 6 months. We need to address the issue and get something rolling. I'm happy to talk about it at your convenience. If you want to talk more, if you think my thoughts are interesting, I'm also happy to have you just move forward and get the job done. So with that,
Larry, what would you think if I said I thought your comments were nice?
I think that's great. I thought yours were nice too.
Actually, I have to say that you just said if you think my comments were intelligent or we're talking about, but when I made my comments, you said that my comments were nice. And I think that's exactly the kind of thing we have to be careful about. You know, we're talking about solutions and it's a broad set. And I'm just saying that I don't know how you meant it. I'm just telling you how I took it.
I meant it in the warmest way possible.
I believe you.
Absolutely.
I believe you.
No, I mean, the thing
But
I'm
just
worried
saying,
about, Armando, is we're not moving fast enough. Okay.
I agree. I completely agree with you. But it's, I'm sorry for my sensitivity, I suppose.
It had absolutely the warmest possible comment I could make. It was meant in that form, not in any other way. There was no secondary agenda.
Yeah, no, Larry, I know. I'm just saying. It just, anyway, thanks. Sorry.
Yeah, I meant that was good, that they were nice.
Maybe just to jump in with a couple of other comments. I appreciate the staff recommendations. It's very thoughtful. I support it. I think I also support Armando's comments, which I am not going to characterize other than I support them and agree with them. and Larry Russell, I have to say I want to think a little bit more about some of the things you're saying about moving very quickly to expand parking and shuttles. I just think we have to think about that more. I appreciate your feeling that we have to move now, but those are actions that do have ramifications and do have costs. And
I was actually talking, Cynthia, about the toilets.
Just finish my point.
Well, you can, but just the toilets is what I was talking about, moving fast, okay? All yours.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
something that, just pick up the phone and it's done, okay?
okay. But I think some of the other issues I think really need to be,
Absolutely.
and they need to be costed, and we really need to think about, you know, those ramifications. And I personally would not be comfortable trying to limit the watershed to local Marin residents. I think, I mean, I think it is a, aside from the logistical issues, I do think it is a resource that should be publicly available. But you know, I'm willing to have that conversation.
Me too.
Okay,
I've got a couple if I could. And I just want to first follow up with what Armando mentioned, which were kind of, I would say, more profound, really, about really, you know, shifting and doing a message, positive, affirmative message. And the one thing I thought of as he was talking is maybe we should think about doing some signage in Spanish or some other language.
That's a good idea.
You know,
Yeah.
because, you know, we got a lot of diversity in this community, and, you know, we want to welcome those folks. There's, you know, access to open space is for everybody in Marin County, and that includes all the different neighborhoods, including the Canal, Marin City. So, you know, that might be a consideration.
But maybe we could do that with the shuttle too, huh? Open doors.
Maybe so. Maybe we could sponsor that. I would think that would be more of a one-TAM kind of thing to do.
Whoever.
Yeah, a positive outreach for sure. On sort of a more just practical level, I very much support expanding the slow zone and
yeah,
making the signs look more official and enforceable instead of just recommended. I mean, the yellow sign, it's kind of like a smiley face, and I don't really think it's got sort of the imprimatur of law or regulation. So especially like Phoenix, you have a lot of elderly people because it's relatively flat. I mean, that should be a slow zone, absolutely, down to Natalie Coffin Green. You know, that's a highly trafficked area, as well as Lagunitas. It really needs to be like official. And I think, you know, as far as peer pressure, you know, I don't think any mountain biker is going to feel great about speeding by, you know, elderly hikers in a flat area. I mean, that's just bad practice. And it does, we do need to encourage that culture of mutual respect on the mountain. I mean, that should be part of our, you know, part of our mission, as I think Armando and everybody else has mentioned. I don't know if we've thought about hiring community service officers or community service people. So they'd be, they used to be called meter maids, but in Fairfax, you know, it's called a community service officer. So instead of having a ranger issuing parking citations, you have you don't have a sworn officer.
Yeah.
You know, you just have somebody that's, you know, maybe wants to become that, who has a radio or has a phone, who can call in assistance if they see something, and can also take care of some of the less, you know, more common tasks, maybe, you know, parking tickets, trash, talking to people, so that the rangers can really come in when they're actually needed, and, you know, they're not stuck taking care of minor things. Totally agree with the increase in bathroom. I mean, it's not only the waste, it's actually the air inside of them. So I think the fresher we can keep the restrooms, the better. There's a real bottleneck that I've discussed with staff at a Deer Park, which is, if you look at the road and trails master plan, that is considered a major entry point. It's a very narrow trail. I think it would be worth reaching out to the school district to see if we could help expand that trail to get in, because I've had several people mention it to me. It's very stressful. It's a very sketchy little trail with a split rail fence on a steep hillside. So that's something I'd like to see us do, is reach out. It's actually, as Crystal sent me a map, it actually is Ross Valley School District land, but maybe we can help them out and figure out a better path over there. And let me just add one more note maybe. I saw the comments that don't support requiring bells. Maybe we don't do that now, but I've been riding up there a long time, and it just seems like a really good idea, instead of having people shouting a warning, to have a bell available. I don't think it's going to solve everything, but you want to build that culture of respect up there through our regulations. So it's just something I think, I wouldn't just dismiss it because, the bike groups, they're handing out bells. The reason they're handing out bells is because it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So I guess that's about it, but very good start, very good conversation. And, I really appreciate that the board is taking a look at the welcoming aspect that Armando brought up. I think is so important for us to really take up, as a board and as a community. So.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just make one last point. So thanks for raising the bells, Larry, and I agree with your points. Because I'm hiking more on the fire roads than I normally do to enable social distancing. And my perspective, completely unscientific, is that there's a real mix in the biker culture that I'm seeing, and I'm running into many, many more bikers than usual because I'm again more on the fire roads. Some are great, they slow, they smile, they do all that, but about 50% are zipping by, and if it's windy or if you're talking, you may not hear them. I mean, in the last week, I've been almost hit 3 or 4 times. So having somebody, having that culture, building that whether it's bells or whatever it is, I really agree. I mean, people are, I definitely am feeling the tension up there now that there's more sharing on those fire roads.
Yeah. And it's like a physical reminder to people to, to yield.
Yeah.
Bikes should yield to pedestrians, period.
I can't say there's any yielding going on. Very little yielding, I'm just happy not to get run over, but yielding would be a whole other thing.
Yeah.
How about just being courteous, but the vehicle code, they call it yielding, so.
Okay, do we have any more comments before we go to public comment? All right, I guess we're ready for public comment.
So we received 8 emails on item 6, and they have been forwarded over to the board members, and they will be posted on our website. As far as participation from the attendees, we do have 2 attendees, Larry Minikis. And just as a reminder to the public, you may participate by clicking the raise hand button. And if you're joining by phone and you'd like to comment, you can press *9 and we'll call on you as appropriate. And all comments should be limited to 3 minutes or less. So with that, we're going to go ahead and have Larry Minikis. Larry Minikis, if you can go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Sean, thank you for the presentation. It's quite complete. And all the problems that Sean is calling out, I can attest to. And I think those of you directors and other staff members that have been on the watershed are seeing exactly the same things. And Sean, in your pictures of the signage, like the kiosk is almost overkill. It's really overkill. You have a very simple sign that wasn't there, and I'll send it over. I took a picture of it. It's right at the entrance at Natalie Coffin Green, and it's of a mask. And it's just a simple picture of a mask. Wear a mask, and it gets the message across to people. And that was the one that I'm referring to in my letter. I just want to be clear about that, and I will send that picture over. last month you had 3 times the EMS calls you have in a typical month. I think there were 18 on that chart, and generally it's 5 to 6 a month, year after year after year. And I believe the month before it was close to triple, and the month before it was double. So that's going up alone. It's taking more ranger time. And the day that poor lady fell down Tucker Trail and had to be helicoptered out, that Saturday, there's 1 ranger on. So that all that energy had to go to that 1 woman. Anything else, I don't know how it would have been handled. There's a bigger elephant in the room here, and your facilities are just overwhelmed. You can see that in the picture, and it's gotten sort of derailed towards signage and how people are acting. But you're not going to change this culture with signs alone. You need enforcement, and with this tremendous increase in recreation that we're seeing, the rangers are not going to be able to go out there and offer stronger enforcement because they've got to do all these other things now that are tying up their times. So the real issue is, where can you find money in this tight times with your tight budgets? Can you find COVID funding or something to put, as Larry was suggesting and Armando touched on, is it's really a staffing problem at this point. These rangers can't handle what they've got. I mean,
Larry, I'm sorry to interrupt. Just to let you know, you have about 40 seconds left.
I appreciate that. And so I do think that a new class of worker up there, or an extra class of worker up there is probably what you need to do. The bathrooms, all those other things fall under this, but what you really need is you need to step up your staffing somehow, because it's overwhelmed the place. And I think it was clear from the photos. And I had other comments, but let's leave it there, Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
And now we have Robert Middlestat. Robert Middlestat?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Hey, just a couple of comments. First of all, I sent a letter to the board and the staff earlier today, and I apologize for that letter. I, as an e-biker, I overreacted and thought this had more to do with e-bikes than it obviously does. So I apologize for that. I think I was maybe 2 weeks ahead of my time on that letter. But I would like to comment on one of the on a couple of things. One is, I wholly endorse this idea of the board making a statement about what's going on today, and I would suggest perhaps taking as the text a comment by William Kent when he was donating the land. And he had as some of you know, he had a dispute with John Muir, who believed that parks should be reserved as a sacred place to serve spiritual needs of humanity. But Kent believed, and I quote, that parks should serve the needs of a democratic people, removing privileges reserved only for a few. And so he thought the public land, the park that was going to go along with the water district, should be for the benefit of all, not for special privileges. And I think there's something there that speaks to what we're going through today. On volunteers, I again wholeheartedly support the slow and say hello. We have a bunch of volunteers who are going to participate on June 25 at Phoenix Lake, so there'll be no shortage of that. Those of us who are responsible bikers want to do nothing more than stand at one of those slow and say slow zone signs and ask people to slow down. We're in full support of that. On the signage, I recognize, Sean, you and your colleagues have had a lot to do the last 3 months. And I think putting up those slow zone signs was a great step forward. I think as you fine tune it though, you'll see, and you probably see this already, that they don't really tell people where the slow zone is. With common sense, people can figure out it's, on the flats and it's where there's a lot of people, but you can't really tell because the signs are not placed at the start and at the end. Along the same line.
Robert, so sorry to interrupt, just to let you know, you have about 30 seconds left.
Okay, on the speed limit sign. I'm not sure a speed limit sign is going to cure the whole problem, But right now, I don't think there's a sign that says 15 miles per hour, except on that little, the second degree sign you have. When you look under the bike icon, it says 15 miles per hour, but it's very hard for anybody to see that. And I also applaud you for giving attention to Alpine Dam. It's a bad situation, and it's bad for cyclists, road cyclists who come through there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now we have Tom Boss. Tom?
Yeah, hi, everybody.
Hi, Tom.
First of all, thank you. My use of the watershed as a place for exercise and reflect has doubled since the start of the COVID pandemic. I can't imagine making it through these challenging times without the relief that Mount Tam has provided me, my family, and countless Marin residents. So thank you for that. Let me turn this down here. Marin County Bicycle Coalition submitted comments that fully support the proposed approaches around outreach and education and promoting and enforcing current watershed rules. So, and I did want to give a shout out to Dawn and Sean and all the watershed team for doing their best to provide access in these challenging times and keeping us safe. We've submitted comments pushing back on some of the long-term thoughts around new enforcement approaches. We understand this is a brainstorming kind of situation, and we simply want to help with that process. So don't take our comments personally, but please reach out if you have any questions or need clarity on those. And we're fully in support of bike bells. And if it has to be a rule, we can talk about that. Our volunteers will be out on the watershed this summer. Sean mentioned that there might be staffing issues, but we've actually gotten a really positive response. People are ready to suit up, wear some COVID protection, and get out there and help with this effort, as we realize so many people are visiting our parks right now. On a personal note, as a lifetime MMWD customer, I hope that the next time you all have a rate increase, you remind people that their monthly bill supports access to a world-class park. And with that, I'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have Nancy Oswald. Nancy? Hi, Nancy.
I believe she's muted. It looks like that on my screen.
Yeah.
Nancy, I'm sending you a request to unmute. Hi, Nancy. Are you there? Okay, let's see here.
She's unmuted.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe.
Sounds
maybe
like it's a Zoom special.
Maybe she changed her mind because her hand is down.
Okay, here, Nancy. Right now you are unmuted. Are you able to talk? Nancy? So Nancy, if you can hear me, just as a reminder, if you are participating via your phone, you could press *9. And if you're participating through your computer, you are given the ability at this point to comment.
I think we should move on.
Yeah, maybe we can reach out to her, or she can send an email for that comment
Yeah.
to be included in the record.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sharice, do we have any other public comments?
We do not have any other public
Oh, we
comments. And
actually have one
actually,
more hand.
we just have a hand raised here. Kieran Culligan. Let's see, one moment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and promote Karen to a panelist. That's the only way we can allow her to talk. Give me 1 second. Karen, are you there?
Hi. Yes, I'm here. This is Kieran Culligan. Sorry, fix the lighting. I just want to make sure we're still on the agenda item around bicycle use in the water district, correct?
Correct.
Great. Yeah, I was putting the kids to bed. I just wanted to briefly comment that I read the staff report. Really supportive of most of the things in there. I just am concerned about some of the focus around enforcement in terms of longer term efforts. I'm a Marin County resident, frequent user of the open space or of the water district land. And, you know, it's a really special place we have. I appreciate all of you taking the time to be stewards of it as board members. And right now we're seeing a lot more people using the open space, which is fantastic for so many reasons, whether they're hiking, they're biking, however they're using it. And I'm just concerned that enforcement it was actually turning off people from using that space as we intended to. That being ambassadors, teaching good etiquette are much better ways to get people to responsibly use the space and to, you know, be collaborative in how we enjoy the space, rather than kind of the risks of raising fees and whatnot. And in many ways, that really just hurts the people who are getting into the sport, who are maybe don't have the incomes that will be most impacted by a fee and using it, which is, I think, really counter to what we should try and encourage, is that people with the least means
You've got mail.
Or newest to this environment, we should encourage to gather the most. So definitely want to urge you to reconsider some of the enforcement strategies in place of, or I'd much rather see more focus on etiquette and people without thinking of it as firm as what's stated in that staff report. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And I'm going to try Nancy one more time. Nancy, are you there? Let me see if I can.
We're going to see if we can shift her. No.
I don't see her, but we did get a hand raised from Joanna Jones. Joanna?
Yes, hi, how are you? Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to make a quick comment as a Marin resident myself and somebody who's an active mountain biker as well as an active runner and hiker on our beautiful trails here. If it's ever been considered, especially during COVID and the increased traffic that we're seeing, to designate some of the trails odd even days for bikers and hikers, just to help mitigate some of the traffic that's there, and then also help with some of the etiquette problems that have been going on as of late.
Yeah, Sean, I don't know if you want, I know that there's something that has been talked about a little bit. I don't know, Sean, if you have a comment you would want to make on it.
I think that's an item that's going to be coming back to the board for further discussion in the July 27th meeting when we talk about e-bikes. There was a conditional access option that did include some of those approaches as far as odd even or conditional uses around routes. So that'll be something for the board to discuss further.
Just a correction, Sean, that's actually tentatively scheduled for July 21st.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Any more public comment?
We have no more public comments.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. And Sean, thank you very much. That was a very stimulating report. I guess we're on item number 7, appointment of a board secretary.
Good evening, board members. We're so excited to bring this item to you tonight. If you recall, back in March of this year, you authorized the general manager to recruit and hire a new board secretary. After reviewing more than 60 applications, tonight we are asking you to approve the appointment of Terry Gillen as our new board secretary. Terry comes to us from the city of Novato, where she's the city clerk, and does many of the duties that she'll be doing here at Marin Water. She has more than 12 years of public sector experience. In addition to the city clerk experience in Novato, she's held similar positions in East Palo Alto and the city of Redwood City. She's also worked as a policy analyst for the city of Oakland and as a field representative for a congressional representative in Contra Costa County. So in her current role, she's responsible for managing meeting minutes, processing the packets, developing the staff reports, and the completion of resolutions, ordinances, and public notices. She's also responsible for ensuring that the council activities comply with the Brown Act. And she's got experience in records management and FPPC filings as well. So she has 2 degrees, a degree in history and a degree in political science. And she's a certified municipal clerk. We really think she'll be an excellent addition to our team here. And we are asking you to approve the appointment of Terry Gillen as our new board secretary.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
I will move approval.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Do we have any public comment on that?
No public comments.
All right. We got a motion and a second. I guess we have a roll call vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Kohler,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
President Gibson.
Aye. All right. Thank you. Item number 8, approval and for recruitment and hiring engineer technician position.
Thank you, Jack. A recent internal promotion has created an engineering technician vacancy in our records department, which is managed by Paul Morrison. This position is critical to the timely and accurate recording and maintenance of digital records of the district's water system. This position prepares digital record drawings for the district's capital improvement program, prepares leak reports and field maintenance and repair records, and maps which are maintained in the district's GIS system, and also provides mapping and support for our underground service alert program. So tonight we're asking the board to authorize the general manager to recruit and hire 1 engineering technician position for our records department.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board?
I have one.
Okay, Armando.
This brings something up for me, which I think is important. I think that in the future, any positions that we're being asked to approve should include a copy of the position description with the announcement that we're being asked to review.
Good idea.
I'd like to make that recommendation, and I don't know if it's something we can take up now, but I do think that it's valuable for all of us to understand, the skill sets that are being recruited for the various positions in the district as well.
Okay, sounds like a good idea.
Very good idea.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, can I get a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, any public comment?
No public comments.
Okay, roll call vote.
Director Bragman,
Aye.
Director Kohler,
Aye.
Director Quintero,
Aye.
Director Russell,
Aye.
President Gibson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, number 9 on our agenda, future meeting schedule.
Well, we are planning to hold all the meetings as scheduled on the board's calendar. I did want to call out to the board's attention on the very bottom, the September 25th planned board retreat. I've heard from most of you, not all of you. If I'll ping the one or two I haven't heard, that will allow us to go ahead and continue to plan for it. And I'll be talking to all of you about the agenda and the details. Of course, September, working assumption will be on Zoom, so we'll likely not have a full day, and as I talk to the board members, we'll figure out a way to try and make it work. We do have a lot of rich items to bring to our annual board retreat.
Okay. All right. Any comments or questions on the future agenda? All right. With that, I think we're at the close of our meeting. Thank you all. I'll adjourn the meeting and see you all next time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.